The house was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, I'd hear the sound of the TV in the background, or Claire humming softly as she did something around the house. But today, nothing. There was only the ticking of the clock on the wall and the faint rustling of paper from the kitchen counter. I had come home from work expecting the usual chaos, the kids running around, Claire chatting away about her day. But when I walked through the door, everything was still. I hadn't seen Claire in hours, and something about the absence felt different. Almost deliberate. It was unsettling, to say the least. I dropped my briefcase by the door and walked into the kitchen. There she was, sitting at the table, facing the window. She didn't turn when I entered, didn't greet me. It wasn't that she looked angry or upset. No, she just looked distant. Hello. Hey, I said, trying to break the silence. How was your day? No response. I stood there, frozen for a moment. Was this some kind of game? Some weird shift that I didn't understand? I tried again, this time a bit louder. Claire? Everything all right? Still nothing. She didn't even flinch. It was as though I wasn't even in the room with her. I walked over to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down across from her. Her eyes flickered for a second, but she quickly looked back out the window. What's going on? I asked softly, trying to mask the panic creeping into my voice. Why aren't you saying anything? She finally spoke, but her voice was cold. I just needed some time to think. Think about what? I asked, my confusion growing. She turned to face me now, but there was no warmth in her gaze, just a vacant stare. About us, she said quietly. About everything. The words hit me like a wave. I had no idea what she meant by everything, but in that moment, I knew something had changed. I had seen this look before, not in her eyes, but in people's eyes when they were on the verge of walking away. Something was wrong. Something was slipping through our fingers, and neither of us knew how to stop it. She pushed back from the table and stood up, walking toward the window again. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last week. About how we've just been going through the motions, living our lives like we're on autopilot. I felt my stomach drop. Last week, I didn't remember saying anything that would have triggered this. I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up her hand, stopping me. I get it now, she continued, her back still turned to me. I've been trying to ignore it, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. But it's not. Not anymore. I sat there, the weight of her words crushing me. What was she talking about? What had happened? Claire and I hadn't had a major fight. We hadn't been on the edge of breaking up. Or had we? Maybe I'd missed the signs. Maybe I'd been too wrapped up in my own life to notice that she was slowly fading away. I'm not happy, Evan, she said, turning around to face me. The words stung, even though I was expecting them. I haven't been for a long time. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I wanted to say something, anything, to fix this, to bring her back to me. But there was nothing. I felt helpless, trapped by my own inability to communicate with her. We were like two strangers, sitting in the same room, pretending everything was okay. Claire took a deep breath. It's not you, Evan, she added, though it felt like a lie. It's me. I've been going through things, and I just don't think I can keep pretending anymore. I was speechless. This wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't this distant, cold version of herself. What had happened to the person who laughed at my dumb jokes, who would cuddle up with me on the couch after a long day? I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. What are you saying, Claire? Are you leaving me? My voice was low, almost desperate. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just stared at me for a moment, her face unreadable. I don't know. I think I need space. Her words hit harder than anything I'd ever experienced. Space. Did that mean she was done? Was this the beginning of the end? I looked at her, my heart pounding in my chest. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I could count on, was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. I turned around and walked out the door. My mind was racing, my thoughts a blur. As I stepped into the cold night, the world outside felt unreal. The life I had built, the family I had worked so hard to maintain, was it all unraveling before my eyes? I had no answers, no clarity. Just a cold emptiness where everything once made sense. And that was the first time I truly understood that nothing in life is guaranteed. Not love, not family, not even the people you thought you could trust. I spent the night pacing around the house, barely able to close my eyes. Claire's words kept echoing in my mind. I'm not happy, Evan. I haven't been for a long time. What did that even mean? We were married. We had a life together. I thought we were content. But clearly, she wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. It wasn't unusual for Claire to get up early. She was always the one to start the day first, making coffee and checking her emails before I even opened my eyes. But today felt different. The house was quieter than usual, like everything had come to a standstill. The air was thick with the tension from the night before. I walked into the kitchen, hoping to find some sort of normalcy, some hint that things weren't falling apart. But as I entered, I found Claire sitting at the counter, her phone in hand, staring at the screen with an intensity one didn't recognize. She didn't even glance up when I walked in. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound casual, trying to bridge the gap that had opened between us. She barely acknowledged me, her eyes still glued to her phone. "Morning," she muttered, her voice flat. This wasn't like her. Claire had always been the type to greet me with a smile, even on tough mornings. She'd give me a kiss on the cheek, maybe tell me something funny from her day ahead, or just offer a quick "love you" before I left for work. But today, nothing. There was this invisible wall between us, and I had no idea how to tear it down. I grabbed a mug, trying to act as if everything was fine, like it was just another morning. But the truth was, I couldn't focus. My mind kept racing, replaying the conversation we'd had last night, trying to understand where I had gone wrong. Had I missed something? Had I ignored the signs? I made my coffee and sat down at the table across from her. The silence between us was suffocating. I could feel it crawling under my skin, making my muscles tense up. I wanted to ask her again what she meant, to get some kind of explanation, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the answer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Claire put her phone down and looked at me. For a moment, I thought she was going to say something that would break the silence. But instead, she just stared at me, her eyes distant. It was like she was looking through me, not at me. "Claire," I began, my voice barely a whisper, "I don't understand. What's going on? Why are we like this?" My hands gripped the edge of the table as I tried to keep my composure. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cry or shout, but I knew I needed answers. I couldn't keep walking around in this fog of uncertainty. She exhaled slowly and leaned back in her chair. "I don't know, Evan. I really don't. I've been trying to figure it out for months, but the truth is, I've changed. I'm not the same person I was when we first met. And I think you've changed too." Her words hit me harder than I was ready for. "I've changed." I stared at her, my mind racing. How had I changed? What had happened to us? We used to be so close. She used to talk to me about everything, and now I was a stranger to her. "I didn't want to hurt you," she continued, her voice softening. "I thought maybe things would get better if I ignored it, but they didn't. And now, I can't pretend anymore. I've tried, but I'm not happy. I can't go on living like this." I felt my chest tighten. "Are you saying you want to leave me?" I asked, my voice barely audible, as if the question itself could break everything we had left. Claire didn't respond right away. She just stared at me, her eyes filled with so many emotions I couldn't name. Sadness, guilt, regret. She finally sighed and stood up, walking over to the window. "I don't know," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I just know that I can't keep going on like this. Something has to change." Her words were like a knife to my chest. My mind went blank. I had no idea how to react, how to fix this. All I could feel was the overwhelming sense of loss, as if everything I had worked for, everything we had built together, was slipping through my fingers. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. "Claire, please, don't do this," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "We can work through this. We can figure it out together. I love you." She turned to face me, her eyes softening for just a moment. "I love you too, Evan," she said, her voice shaking. "But love isn't enough anymore. It's not enough to fix what's broken." I wanted to scream, to beg her to stay, to tell her I would do anything to make things right. But something inside me told me that this wasn't something I could fix. This wasn't a fight I could win. Claire walked past me, heading toward the door. "I need some space," she said, her voice distant again. "I need time to think, to figure out what I want." And just like that, she was gone. I stood there, frozen in place, my heart pounding in my chest. She had left me once, but it felt different this time. She wasn't just physically walking away. She was walking away from the life we had built. And I was standing there, helpless, watching as everything I knew crumbled. I didn't know what to do next. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. The house felt colder the next day. I didn't expect Claire to come back home immediately, but the silence was suffocating and I couldn't stand it. Her absence felt more permanent, like a void that was impossible to fill. As I walked around the house, I couldn't help but notice all the little things she left behind. Her coffee mug on the counter, her coat still hanging by the door, her half-read book on the couch. It was as if she was still here in some way, and yet she was gone. I had tried to keep myself busy, hoping that the distraction would help me figure things out. But the truth was, nothing made sense. Claire's words kept replaying in my head. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was. What did that mean? Was it me? Had I failed her in some way? Or was it her, something deeper within her that had shifted? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep waiting for something that wasn't coming. I couldn't keep sitting in the house, hoping Claire would walk through the door and everything would magically go back to how it was before. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I couldn't just sit here anymore, numb and stuck. That afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I didn't have a particular destination in mind, but I knew I needed to get away from the walls of this house. I walked for hours, just wandering, my mind racing with thoughts of Claire and everything she had said. By the time I returned, the house was even quieter than before. But there was something new. A note, hastily scribbled on a piece of paper, was sitting on the kitchen table. I couldn't ignore it. My heart raced as I picked it up, my hands trembling slightly. The handwriting was Claire's, but it was different somehow, neat and controlled, like she had been deliberately careful about each word she wrote. Evan, I know this is hard to understand, but I need you to hear this. There's something I've been keeping from you, something I've hidden for a long time. I didn't want to tell you this, but I think it's time. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts. The words burned as I read them. What was this? What was she talking about? Was this some kind of confession, an explanation for everything that had been happening? I've been seeing someone else, the note continued. I never meant for it to go this far, but I couldn't deny the connection. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to be honest. I've tried to end it, but the truth is, I don't know how. I never wanted to hurt you. Please don't hate me. The floor beneath me seemed to fall away. I read the note again, hoping I had misunderstood, but there was no mistaking it. Claire had been seeing someone else. All the things I had felt, the distance, the coldness, the absence, suddenly made sense. But this was beyond anything I had expected. My mind swirled with 1,000 questions. Who was this other man? How long had this been going on? And why? Why hadn't she just told me? Why had she waited until now to confess? I felt a sickening wave of anger and betrayal wash over me, but it was mixed with confusion. Claire had always been honest with me before, or at least I thought she had been. To think that she had been hiding something like this for so long. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the note in disbelief. The emotions I felt were overwhelming. Hurt, anger, betrayal, confusion, but underneath it all was something else. A strange sense of relief. As much as I hated the truth, at least now I knew. At least now I understood why Claire had been pulling away. This wasn't just about her needing space or time to think. She had already made her decision, and I was the one left behind. I didn't know what to do next. The thought of confronting her made my stomach churn, but I knew it was something I had to do. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her, to look her in the eye and ask her why she had done this. But as I sat there, waiting for the moment to come, a part of me was already preparing for the fallout. In that moment, I realized that the life I had built with Claire was over. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the trust that had been shattered, the connection that had been lost. Everything we had, everything I thought was secure, was now in pieces, scattered all around me. And I had no idea how to pick them up. The silence in the house was deafening as I sat there, the weight of the note in my hands like a brick in my chest. It was a silence that was more final than any words could ever be. Claire had left me with more than just a broken heart. She had left me with the realization that everything I had known, everything I had taken for granted, was gone. And there was no going back. I couldn't sit still any longer. The note had shattered everything I thought I understood about our life together. Claire's words kept echoing in my head, but I couldn't make sense of them. She had been seeing someone else. She had kept it a secret for God knows how long. And now, the truth was out. But it felt like the more I thought about it, the more questions swirled inside me. questions that needed to be answered, even if the answers would destroy me. I had to confront her. I had no choice. There was a part of me that wished I could just walk away from all of this, just leave it behind and pretend none of it happened. But that wasn't me. I had to face it head on, no matter how much it hurt. So, I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen, unsure of what to type. Should I call her? Text her? I couldn't decide, but I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. My mind was racing, and my heart was pounding in my chest. I had to hear it from her. I had to know why. I decided to call her. The phone rang, and for a moment, I wondered if I should have given her more space. But no, this had gone on long enough. I needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Finally, she picked up. Hello. Her voice sounded distant, like she was trying to act casual, but I could hear the tension underneath it. Claire, I said, my voice steady but edged with something I couldn't hide. We need to talk. I got your note. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to figure out how to respond. Evan, No. I interrupted, my voice firmer now. Don't start with the excuses. I need to know. Why? Why did you do this? What happened to us? The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear her breathing, the hesitation in her voice, and I wondered if she was regretting this, if she was rethinking everything. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she finally said. Her voice was small, almost apologetic, but there was no escaping the coldness that had crept in. I never wanted to hurt you, Evan. I don't know how it got to this point. How long? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. How long have you been seeing him? There was another long pause. A few months, she admitted quietly. I tried to end it. I really did. But every time I thought I could move on, I just couldn't. I got stuck. I felt my chest tighten as the weight of her words pressed down on me. A few months. That was all it took for everything to unravel. I thought back to the past few months, how disconnected she had been, how distant, how she had stopped sharing things with me, stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped giving me the attention I needed. I had thought it was just stress, or maybe a phase, but I couldn't have been more wrong. But why? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Why him? What did he give you that I didn't? I don't know, she replied, her voice trembling. I can't explain it. It was like I was chasing something I thought I needed to feel alive again. I thought maybe it was a way out, a way to escape everything that was weighing me down. But now, I see how stupid it was. Her words, the way she said them, made my stomach churn. She had been searching for something. And now, all I could do was sit here, feeling like the one who had been left behind, discarded in favor of whatever excitement this other man brought. So what now? I asked, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. What's left for us? Is there even anything left? I don't know, Evan, she said, her voice softer now. I don't even know if I can fix this. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. All I can do is be honest with you now. The honesty stung, but I appreciated it more than I wanted to admit. At least she wasn't hiding behind more lies. She wasn't trying to justify her actions. But that didn't change the fact that everything had already been broken beyond repair. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I need you to tell me one thing, I said, my voice quieter now. Do you still love me? There was a long silence, longer than any I had ever experienced before. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, waiting for her to speak. And when she finally did, the words didn't come as a surprise, but they shattered me all the same. I don't know, Evan. I don't think I do anymore. I thought I did, but now I'm not sure. Her confession felt like a slap to the face. The woman I had loved, the woman I had thought I knew, was telling me she didn't love me anymore. And it wasn't a simple, I'm sorry, or a maybe we can fix this. It was final. I didn't know what to say. How do you respond to something like that? I had no idea. I felt the lump in my throat and the sting in my eyes, but I refused to let myself break down in that moment. I needed to be strong, at least for myself. I think it's time for us to let go, I said, each word feeling heavier than the last. There's nothing left here for me. There was no immediate response from Claire. I could hear her sobbing quietly on the other end of the line, and a small part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt, betrayed, and abandoned, told me to stand firm. I'm sorry, Evan, she whispered through her tears. I never meant for it to be this way. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my composure. I know, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But it is. And with that, I ended the call. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I sat there, staring at my phone, my heart racing. What had just happened? Where did I go from here? Everything had changed. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces. But for the first time, I didn't know where to begin. The night after I spoke with Claire felt heavier than any night I could remember. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the conversation over and over. The sound of her voice, the confession that she didn't love me anymore. I couldn't shake the image of her face, how she looked when she said it. It wasn't anger or frustration, it was just emptiness. A hollow, resigned expression, as though she had already made peace with the decision to walk away. I had never imagined this would be my reality. Claire, the woman I had shared everything with, had suddenly become a stranger. She was gone, emotionally, long before she had physically left. And now, I was left to pick up the wreckage of a life I thought was built on love and trust. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. I found myself walking aimlessly around the house, touching things she had once touched, staring at the empty spaces where her presence used to fill the room. It was as though every corner of the house had become a painful reminder of what I had lost. I kept thinking about the past, our past, all the moments we had shared, the quiet evenings together, the long talks, the laughter, the plans for the future. And now it was all shattered. I couldn't even look at the pictures we had taken, the ones that had always made me smile, without feeling like they were mocking me. I couldn't help but wonder about him, the other man. What did he have that I didn't? Was he the one who had pulled her away, the one who had caused the distance? I hated that I couldn't get him out of my mind. It wasn't even about him specifically. It was about everything he represented. The betrayal, the lies, the secrecy that had turned everything I had built into rubble. I tried to call Claire again, but she didn't answer. Part of me expected her not to. And yet, another part of me desperately needed her to pick up, to say something that would make all of this make sense. But nothing came. I felt like I was talking to a void. Every call, every message, was met with silence. That silence began to consume me, feeding the doubt that had already taken root. Was this really it? Was there no coming back from this? The days dragged on, and I found myself sinking deeper into the chaos of my thoughts. I would see couples, families, laughing and walking hand in hand, and a wave of jealousy and resentment would wash over me. It wasn't just the affair. It was the realization that I had been so blindsided, so completely unaware of the changes in our relationship. It was as though Claire had slipped away piece by piece, and I had never noticed until it was too late. But despite everything, a small part of me clung to hope. A part of me refused to believe that it was truly over. Maybe it was denial, or maybe it was just the remnants of love that still lingered, refusing to let go. I couldn't bring myself to accept that the woman I had loved for so long was gone, and that our life together had crumbled so completely. I didn't want to let go. I didn't want to accept that the future I had imagined for myself was nothing more than an illusion. One evening, after days of silence, Claire texted me. "Can we meet? I need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this. I didn't know if I wanted to hear whatever it was she had to say. But I knew one thing. I couldn't ignore it. She was reaching out, and for better or worse, I had to face her. I agreed to meet her at a small cafe we used to go to when things were good between us. It was a neutral place, one that didn't hold the weight of all the memories that had built up in our home. I sat down at a table by the window, my heart racing with anticipation. I didn't know what to expect, but I was certain of one thing. I had to hear her out, no matter how much it hurt. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired, worn out, as if the last few days had taken a toll on her. She didn't smile when she saw me. There was no warmth in her eyes, only a sad acknowledgement of the pain we were both carrying. "Hi," she said quietly, sitting down across from me. There was a long pause, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. I studied her face, trying to find some trace of the woman I had once known. But it was like looking at a stranger. "You wanted to talk?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. She nodded slowly, looking down at the table. "I don't even know where to begin, Evan. I've been thinking about everything, about us, and I don't know what to say. I don't even know if I should be here." I felt my chest tighten at her words. "Then why are you here, Claire?" I asked, my voice a little sharper than I intended. "Why reach out to me now? What's left to talk about?" She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of emotion. Because, she said, her voice trembling, I need to tell you the truth. The whole truth. And maybe you'll understand why things happened the way they did. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever she had to say, but there was a part of me that needed it, needed to hear her explanation. Even if it tore me apart, I had to know. I'm listening, I said, leaning forward, my heart pounding in my chest. Claire took a deep breath before speaking again. The truth is, I wasn't just looking for someone else. I was looking for myself. Somewhere along the way, I lost who I was. I didn't recognize the person I had become in this relationship. And I thought that by being with someone else, I could fix it. I thought it would make me feel alive again. Her voice broke slightly as she continued. But I was wrong, Evan. I made a terrible mistake. I should have come to you, talked to you, before everything got so complicated. But I didn't. I thought I could fix it on my own, and I couldn't. I'm so sorry. The words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. My heart was aching, but there was something else there too, a sense of clarity. Claire wasn't just apologizing for the affair, she was apologizing for everything. For the distance, for the lies, for the person she had become. I wanted to yell, to scream at her for what she had done, but instead, I sat there, motionless, taking it all in. This was the truth. And now, the question was whether I could ever accept it. Could I ever forgive her for everything? Or was this the point of no return? The words hung in the air, thick with tension. Claire sat across from me, her eyes filled with regret, her voice trembling. The truth was out now, raw and jagged, cutting through everything we had built. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, threatening to crush me under its enormity. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I just stared at her, trying to process what she had said, trying to make sense of it all. I wanted to feel angry, wanted to shout at her, to demand answers for the years we'd spent together, for the trust she had broken. But somehow, I just felt numb. I couldn't summon the energy to be furious. Maybe it was because I was too exhausted, or maybe it was because I had already seen it coming. Maybe, in some twisted way, I had known this moment would come. Claire reached across the table, her hand shaking slightly, as if she were testing the waters, unsure whether I would accept the gesture. I pulled my hand back, not out of spite, but because I couldn't bear the thought of touching her right now. Not after everything. I'm sorry, she whispered again, her voice barely audible. I never meant for you to get hurt. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Her apology, though sincere, felt hollow. It felt like a last-ditch effort to salvage something that was already beyond saving. I had spent the past few days questioning myself, wondering if I had been blind, if I had missed the signs. But sitting here now, with Claire's tear-streaked face across from me, I realized that none of it mattered anymore. We were beyond apologies. We were beyond trying to make sense of it. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that was raging inside me. I had always been the one to keep the peace, the one who tried to fix things before they got too messy. But right now, I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to fix her, or how to fix me. You're right, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. You should have come to me. We should have talked about this before everything fell apart. But instead, you chose to hide. You chose someone else, Claire. And now look at us. The words cut through the silence like a knife. I could see the pain in her eyes, the guilt that was written all over her face. She didn't need me to say it, though. I knew she already understood. She had made her choice, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. I didn't want this, she said again, shaking her head. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to lose everything we had. But I was lost, Evan. I was so lost. For a brief second, I almost felt sympathy for her. It was hard not to, given how broken she looked. But then the reality of what had happened hit me again, and the sympathy evaporated. She had chosen her path. She had chosen to betray the trust we had built, and now there was no going back. I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire, I said, my voice cracking under the weight of the words. I don't know if I even want to try. Everything we had, it's gone. It's all gone. Her eyes welled up with tears, and I could see her throat tighten as she struggled to hold herself together. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She just sat there, looking at me with an expression that was a mixture of regret, sorrow, and something else, something that almost felt like resignation. Is there any chance for us? she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Is there any chance that we could fix this? The question hung in the air like an anchor, pulling everything down. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I asked myself the same question. Could we fix this? Could we go back to who we were before? Could I trust her again? The answer came to me as quickly as it had formed, but it wasn't something I was ready to say aloud. I don't know. I finally replied, the words tasting like ashes on my tongue. I don't know if we can fix this, Claire. I don't know if I want to. Maybe it's better if we just let go. The silence that followed was suffocating. She didn't cry anymore. Instead, she sat there, her face pale and unreadable, as if she were processing the weight of what I had just said. And maybe she was. But the truth was, I was tired. I was tired of trying to hold on to something that wasn't there anymore. I was tired of being the one who kept trying to fix things when she had already walked away. The idea of letting go was terrifying, but I knew it was the only choice left. I couldn't keep holding on to a relationship that had already died. I couldn't keep pretending that we could return to the way things were when the truth was staring me in the face. I think we both need some time, I said, standing up and breaking the silence. I need time to figure out what comes next. And you need to figure out what you want too. Claire didn't say anything. She didn't try to stop me as I walked toward the door, and I didn't expect her to. We were already too far gone. There was no more fixing it, no more pretending it was okay. I didn't know what my future held, but I knew it didn't involve Claire anymore. As I stepped out into the cold night, I felt the weight of the finality in my chest. I was done. This chapter of my life was over. And as much as it hurt, as much as I wanted to go back and make it all right, I knew there was no going back. It was time to move on. It was time to find out who I was without her. And that terrified me more than anything. But it was the only choice left. And so I walked away. The weeks that followed felt like a blur. Nothing but an endless stream of half-formed thoughts, painful silences, and restless nights. Claire was no longer in my life, but it felt like she was everywhere. The absence of her presence was deafening, and yet every corner of the house seemed to be haunted by reminders of what once was. I would catch myself drifting back to memories, small, seemingly insignificant moments that now seemed like echoes of a time that would never return. I started staying away from the house more, spending late hours at work or walking aimlessly around the city, trying to outrun the suffocating weight of reality. I had thought that walking away from her would be the hardest part, but I quickly learned that it wasn't the leaving that was the hardest, it was the being left behind. For the first few days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, and it was as if the moment of her betrayal was frozen in my mind. The image of her sitting across from me in that cafe, her eyes filled with tears and regret, haunted me. I tried to block it out. I tried to bury the memory of that conversation under the weight of time, but it always came back, like an invisible tether that wouldn't let go. And yet, as much as I hated to admit it, a part of me missed her. Not just the woman she had been, but the life we had built, the routine we had shared, the quiet moments, the ones that had once seemed so insignificant, now seemed like the only things that mattered. It was as if the world had become a blur of noise and movement, and the only clarity I could find was in the fragments of the past. But I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to the way things were. Claire had made her choice, and in doing so, she had made mine for me. I had tried to fix things, to hold on to something that was already broken beyond repair. But now, the pieces were scattered, and no amount of effort could put them back together. As I wandered through the streets, I couldn't help but notice how everything had changed. I would pass by familiar places, the coffee shop we used to visit, the park where we'd had our first date, even the old bookstore where we spent hours looking through old novels, and everything felt foreign. The world, once so comfortable, had become a strange and painful reminder of what I had lost. But life moved on, whether I was ready or not. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to move with it. The first time I realized that things were truly changing was when I found myself talking to someone else. It wasn't anything serious, just a casual conversation, but the moment I caught myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I realized that maybe I could breathe again. Her name was Julia. I met her through a mutual friend, and for the first time since Claire, I found myself able to talk to someone without that heavy, suffocating sadness weighing on me. She was nothing like Claire. She didn't have the same soft eyes or the same gentle smile, but there was something about her, a warmth, a spark, that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in months. At first, I tried to push the idea of dating away. I wasn't ready for that. How could I be? How could I even think about moving on when Claire's betrayal still lingered in the back of my mind? But Julia was different. She wasn't trying to fill a void or replace someone. She was simply there, offering a kind of companionship I hadn't realized I missed. The more I talked to her, the more I realized that maybe I wasn't broken beyond repair. Maybe there was a way to start over. I didn't know what the future held, but the thought of stepping into it, of letting go of the past and moving forward, was starting to feel less impossible. It was hard. Every step felt heavy, like I was dragging the weight of everything that had happened with me. But as time passed, the weight got a little lighter. One evening, as I sat across from Julia in a small restaurant, sipping coffee, she looked at me with those bright eyes, full of curiosity and life, and asked a simple question. "What's the hardest part about all of this for you, Evan?" For a moment, I was caught off guard. I hadn't really thought about it that way. The hardest part? There were so many things, so many pieces of myself that felt broken. But as I sat there, looking at her, I realized the truth. The hardest part, I said slowly, is realizing that you can't control everything. That sometimes, no matter how hard you try, things just fall apart. And the only choice you have is to either stay in the pieces or try to rebuild, even if it means starting from scratch. Julia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's a hard truth." "Yeah," I said, exhaling deeply. "But it's the truth. And I'm starting to think it's the only one I need to face right now." It wasn't a perfect answer. It wasn't even the closure I had hoped for. But it was the first time in a long time that I felt like I was finally looking forward, not backward. And for the first time in months, the future didn't seem like a terrifying abyss. It seemed like a possibility. Maybe I hadn't fully healed. Maybe I never would. But for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. Maybe healing wasn't about going back to who I was before. Maybe it was about learning to live with the scars, accepting that things didn't always turn out the way we wanted, and finding a way to move forward despite it all. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that I could. It had been months since that night with Claire, months since I had walked away from the life I thought I would have forever. The pain had dulled, the constant weight of betrayal fading slowly into the background of my life. I hadn't healed, not entirely. There were still moments where the memories would rush in uninvited, moments of sadness, regret, and longing for something that had been lost. But there were also moments of clarity, moments when I realized how far I had come. I had learned to live again, piece by piece, finding joy in the small things that once seemed so insignificant. I had rediscovered parts of myself I had forgotten, strength, resilience, and the ability to find happiness, even after everything had fallen apart. Julia had been there for me, not as someone trying to fill the empty space Claire had left, but as someone who simply made me feel seen again. We had taken things slow, allowing our connection to grow naturally, without the pressure of expectations or the ghosts of past relationships hanging over us. One afternoon, we were sitting together in a park, the sun shining brightly, the air warm and inviting. The world felt different now, lighter. I could hear children playing nearby, the sound of laughter mixing with the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. It felt peaceful, like the calm after a storm. Julia was talking about something trivial, her favorite book, a funny story from work, but I wasn't really listening. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I was completely overwhelmed by the peace I felt in that moment. It wasn't just the world around me that felt calm, it was me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was where I was meant to be. She stopped talking when she noticed my quiet gaze. "Evan," she asked, tilting her head, a soft smile on her lips. "You okay?" I smiled back, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm more than okay. I think I'm finally at peace." Her smile widened, and without thinking, I reached out to take her hand in mine. It was a simple gesture, but for me, it was everything. It was a symbol of the journey I had taken, from heartbreak to healing, from loss to rediscovery. "I'm glad," she said, squeezing my hand gently. "I'm really glad." And in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need to be whole again to move forward. I didn't need to erase the past or pretend it never happened. The pieces of me that had been broken had somehow come together, not into the person I used to be, but into someone new. Someone stronger, someone more aware of what truly mattered. As we sat there, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the simple joy of each other's company, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. The future, once a daunting unknown, now seemed full of possibilities. I didn't know where life would take me or what challenges I would face next, but for the first time in a long time, I was ready for whatever came my way. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that shape us the most. And though I had lost something precious along the way, I had also gained something invaluable, a deeper understanding of who I was, and a clearer vision of the life I wanted to create. With Julia by my side and a renewed sense of purpose in my heart, I knew that this was just the beginning. The journey wasn't over, but it was mine to shape now, free from the shadows of the past. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that the future could be better than anything I had ever imagined. Because after all, sometimes the hardest storms lead to the most beautiful skies. And I was ready to embrace it all.